These commands let you take photos of your Minecraft world and print them onto a map. This means you can now add custom decorations to your house or share your latest build with your friends like never before. And the best part of it all, anybody could do it since it was created with only command blocks. Alright, look, I've loaded into the world, which you can download in the description, by the way. But I want to take a picture of this ruined portal. So I'm just going to tower up here, grab a map. Okay, and then so we line up where we want the picture to be. I'm trying to take a picture of this portal. It's gonna be like this area, I'm pretty sure, you'll see. And then if you just hold the map and look at what you want to take a photo of, then when you shift, capturing, it'll say. Then you kind of gotta wait a minute. Okay, but there, boom, and look at this. This is what we were looking at, and this is the picture. Oh, dude, do you see that? It even has the detail on the walls. Oh, that's insane. Like the portal, you can see the gold blocks. The gold blocks come in. This has got to be one of the coolest things I've made in quite a while, man. This is sick. Enough yapping though. I'll show you plenty of pictures throughout the video, but let's just jump right into the commands. I want to show you how this works because it's insane and it's been over a year in the making. Well, kinda. All right, I've jumped into an older world. This is before I had it working and it's easier to show what's going on here, but let me clean up my screen real quick. Okay, much nicer. Now the first mechanic has to do with when you're holding the map and then you crouch to activate the camera. You'll see when I crouch, it's gonna bring this boat above me, and you'll see as I wiggle, the boat kind of wiggles as well. You'll see right there, I've got the map in my hand, right? And so as I'm shifting, that boat's gonna just go wherever I'm looking. And so in the finished product, you'll just shift once and then that's it, it'll start the camera. But right here, I have it going continuously. And you'll see wherever I go, it's gonna follow me. But more importantly, whenever I look a certain direction, the boat will rotate to face that same direction as well. And so you'll see as I turn, it's gonna turn. As I look up and down, it's gonna look up and down as well. Now the whole point of this boat is really just to set one point where we're gonna be taking the picture from. And so when we're holding a map and then we crouch, we get this boat above us that's going to look where we were looking. And this starts the camera function, but how does the actual camera work? Well, the short answer is just raycasting. Now, raycasting is a pretty common term in games where you just shoot an invisible ray from a player until it hits something. And starting my project, I just used this easy raycasting setup that I got from Fantasy the Commander. But basically what it does is when you turn it on, it'll shoot a ray and it'll just put a particle wherever you're looking. And the crucial command that makes this whole thing work is this one in the middle. And so basically what this is doing is it's targeting an XP orb. Now the XP orb is just a random entity that we have decided to cast our ray out of. It's not really that important, but we're gonna teleport this XP orb forward a quarter of a block. Now that's not very far, but then we can use this c=2 a whole bunch of times like you see, and this multiplies it, squaring the distance it travels each time. So 0.25 becomes 0.5 and then 1 block. And then we just keep doing that until eventually the camera has an effective range of over 100 blocks. Now you could make it bigger if you wanted, but 100 blocks is plenty of room to capture almost any image you want. So I left it here. And so in practice with the camera, we're taking that XP orb and we're summoning it at the boat, and then we're pointing it forward and just teleporting it until it runs into a block. And I wish I could slow it down so I could show it to you a little bit better, but the whole concept actually relies on being executed in one tick. So hopefully the editor gave you a nice visual aid. Pretty much how it works is you have your boat. Why is it so small? Which is also facing that same direction. Does that make sense? Say here there's a block right here. So it hits a block. It's facing the same way as the player. Yeah, that makes sense, right? And so we can use all of those command blocks plus a bunch more, might I add, and that summons us 1 pixel. Now that's obviously really slow. And so the obvious solution is instead of casting 1 ray at a time, we cast 16 rays at a time, making it over 1000% faster. Now the problem that arises when we want to do 16 pixels at the same time is that we need them to tile correctly, because essentially we're going to be taking a picture of this whole area and then we're going to be rotating and taking a picture of this whole area. And the tricky part is getting these edges to line up so that it looks like one continuous image. Now I'm a smart guy. I just graduated from college, so I used trigonometry to solve this problem. Which is to say that I remembered trigonometry could solve this problem, but I haven't taken a math class in years, so I asked ChatGPT to do it for me. Hey ChatGPT, can you solve for x right here? Yeah, so it's like 0.2 degrees essentially. And so I actually used the number that ChatGPT gave me, and it worked for a little bit, but I was having some huge errors. So I ended up just relearning SOHCAHTOA, and I did the math myself. So I guess Technoblade was telling the truth when he said,
"Stay in school, kids. It makes you better at PvP."
Now that I had the math figured out, I kind of was starting to lock in some of the key variables like the field of view for the camera. And I never calculated it exactly, but I'm pretty sure the FOV is around 45 degrees. I kind of just messed with values until I felt like it was an appropriate size. Is that coming through on the recording? I think it puts so much strain on the GPU, there's kind of like flashes. And so you'll see right here, I've kind of just made a grid. And something I didn't really make intentionally, but I think is really cool, is you get this almost warping of the lens, kind of like a fisheye. And when I saw that for the first time making this creation, it kind of made me just go, wow, math is beautiful. Anyways, now that we can cast 1,000 invisible rays into the world and find out what block we're looking at, I had to find a way to translate whatever's in front of us onto a map so that you can actually have a picture. Now the basic idea for this is to just clone the block from whatever you're looking at to the corresponding position on the map. But there's a caveat here, because we can't clone from one relative position directly to another relative position. It kind of just doesn't work with commands. And so in order to clone from where we're looking to the relative position on the map, in the middle, we have to clone it to an absolute point. And so that's what this little 16 block grid is here for. Whenever we start the camera process, it's going to shoot a ray out from the player until it hits a block. It's going to remember that block and clone it right here. And then each one of those blocks on the grid corresponds to one of these armor stands that I've got over this giant canvas. And so each one of these guys is responsible for actually placing one of the pixels. You see that checkerboard in the corner? That's all these armor stands right here. And the cloning function sounds easy enough, and it really should be, but of course it's Minecraft commands, so there's a couple of caveats. Well, 4 really. The first scenario is the ideal scenario. We just shoot a ray, it hits a block, clone it here, and then we put it on the map. But then there's also the possibility that a ray will hit just the edge of a block, and then it thinks it's run into a block, but there's not actually anything there. This is an error that I couldn't really find a reliable way around, and so if it doesn't know what it's looking at, it just does nothing, and it'll copy the last block that it actually hit. This looks correct most of the time. Sometimes you'll get some weird hiccups and you'll kind of just get this noise about your image, but I couldn't really think of a better way to handle this. If you have a better idea, you can drop it in the comments. Now the third scenario is that we can just shoot a ray off into the sky and it hits nothing. This is a little bit tricky to test for since, as I mentioned earlier, our range is just over 100 blocks. So if it doesn't find anything in 100 blocks, we assume that it's the sky, and I'll talk about how we handled this later because it's kind of interesting. Now the fourth scenario is that we shoot it into the water. I didn't really expect this problem, but apparently when you're teleporting them with this raycasting method, they just go straight through the water. And we don't really want that to happen because taking a picture of a nice beach really loses its charm once you take all the water away. Oh, dude, I just realized, you know those little splotches that I thought was the graphics card just getting strained? Those are the XP orbs shooting out. You can see it actively scanning your screen. Dude, that's insane. I've never noticed that before. Now, originally when we ran into nothingness, I just placed a diamond block so that would look like the sky. And I think it worked decent enough for a while, but it had this greenish hue and I didn't really like the way it looked. So I tried to look into some alternatives to see what other colors would look good on a map. Yeah, they don't really have a color that looks quite like sky. They're all just a little bit too green or a little bit too neon is what I thought. So originally this is what your images would look like. And I think that sky is just way too bluish green. It doesn't look anything like the actual sky. And so instead what I opted to do is hand make this gradient. Look at that, dude. Isn't it sick? It doesn't really look like the sky in person, but that's just because map colors are weird. I mean, that's a lot closer to the actual Minecraft sky, right? And so that whole gradient is just under the canvas. And so whenever it runs into sky, instead of placing these diamond blocks like it used to, it just places air specifically. It took me quite a while to make it, but I think it was worth it because when you get these pictures where a lot of it is the sky, like this tree or a mountain, it doesn't look like this greenish blue vomit. I think it brings a lot more wonder to the painting, you know? Now having the sky generate under the glass kind of got me thinking how else I could use this technique. And I had two main ideas. One of them was to just add up picture frames so it wouldn't look out of place next to a painting in your house. But another one I have, which is even cooler, is I built this frame around the whole picture to make it look like a Polaroid. And that's just so chill. There's not really any commands involved for doing this, but just think about how much of a power move it is to walk up to your friend and hand them a Polaroid on a map. Now back to the commands. After all of those, we can finally generate 16 pixels. But all the hard part is done because we can really just reuse that function for those 16 pixels to cover the entire map. And then in between each pixels, we just rotate the boat a little bit. Now to make sure that we're getting the whole map, we repeat these 16 pixels 16 times. And then we update this scoreboard to let us know that we completed a whole row. And after we complete one whole row, we reset everything and rotate it down a little bit. And then we just repeat that until we have 16 rows. And then after we've filled the whole canvas with our picture, we teleport the player to the canvas so that they can fill their map and update it. And then boom, you've taken a picture on a map. Honestly, I find it a bit shocking how well this one works. I'm not sure how many of you guys would remember, but I actually made this exact video a year ago. Now back then, the creation was much slower and much clunkier. And on top of that, it was really not user-friendly. I'm surprised anybody could take a picture with this. And doing a project over again really brought to light how much better I've got at using commands just in this past year. For example, the camera I made a year ago took over 15 minutes to generate some of these images that I used for the video. That's why there's like 3 in the whole video. But this camera can generate an image in just under 13 seconds. The only delay that comes into the creation is actually when we're cloning the blocks from one place to another. In order to give it time to grab the correct block, we have to give a 1 tick delay for every 16 pixels. Which means that in theory, you only need 256 ticks to generate a whole image. Now that is in theory, because if you don't have a NASA computer, you're definitely gonna run into processing restrictions. And so realistically, I can generate an image in about 30 seconds, and I think I have like a mid-high-end PC. But you will notice the counter as I just render a normal image like this goes that fast. And I'm not really sure how Minecraft is optimized, but it seems like a lot of the delay seems to come from cloning the blocks and updating the actual world. Because if we just point it up at the sky where it's not going to be cloning any blocks, it goes significantly faster. Now in the beginning, I really set out to remake my camera because I felt a little unsatisfied with the camera that I made a year ago. And I've got to say, it's really satisfying to see how much I've grown with commands and how far my skills have really come. But I do feel like I could do better, so maybe I'll try again in a year, who knows. But if you have one takeaway from this video, it should be that you should start learning commands today, because who knows what you could do in a year from now. Now I don't have a NASA computer, but I do have access to a giant cloud computer on SparkToast. So I was curious if running this world on my server would be any faster, and I timed it and the results were pretty mixed. I don't really know where the limiting factors are, but even with the camera running at peak speed, my server didn't lag one bit because SparkToast has incredible options for servers. So if you're looking to host your own server, then check out my link below and use the code TheCommandsMan for 25% off your first month. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you guys in the next one.